Okay, so as you can tell from the title of this video, today we are spilling the tea. I really wanted to share my experience of working at Lush. I worked at Lush 2 different times. Both times were seasonally, so I was hired on a seasonal contract. I worked in 2 different stores as well. The first time was for Christmas 2016, and it was in a store that's located inside of a mall. And then the second time was for summer 2017, and it was a store that was located in like the main tourist area where I live. I get a phone call out of the blue that's like, hey, we're having a hiring fair tomorrow, can you come? And I was like, no, I already have plans. And they're like, oh, too bad, okay. So this is where it all gets fishy. It starts to get fishy from the very beginning. Okay, too bad, I can't work for them this Christmas because I can't attend this hiring fair. So the way they hire people is you attend a hiring fair and then you go to a thing called a culture hour, which I will explain, and then you are basically hired. So I think it was a couple days later, I get a call from them again and they're like, oh, we're like really desperate for people. It's okay that you couldn't come to the hiring fair. Just come to a culture hour. And I was like, okay, great. Like I get to skip the first part and go right into a culture hour. So I show up and right off the bat, the manager who was showing me around, we'll call her Emma. So Emma was basically doing like a regular culture hour. She would take me around and you're basically questioned about things and put on the spot. It's like a test, which I was not prepared for. I thought I was literally going to be shadowing someone, so following them around, seeing what a typical day would be in like an hour period. That's not what it was like at all. So you're basically tested on things like, oh, if a customer came in and asked you about this product, what would you say? And I was like, I don't know. I like hadn't really shopped at Lush before, so I was like, it was difficult. It was like a test. And so at the end of it though, Emma was like, oh, you did like really well. You've pretty much like got the job. Like, we're really desperate for people for Christmas. Like, you've basically got it and we'll call you within a couple of days. And I was like, oh, sweet. So it's like basically in the bag. So I go home in a couple of days. I get a phone call from someone who isn't Emma. It's just a random voice. I don't know who it is. And they were like, yeah, so we actually don't have any positions available. Like, I'm really sorry. But maybe check at the other store and they might have positions available. And I was just like, I didn't say anything when I was on the phone, but I was just kind of taken aback and I was like, how unprofessional for one of your managers to basically tell me I had gotten the job and then like do a complete 180 and be like, just kidding. So that should have been like a red flag right there. So yeah, so on the phone, so this was for the like downtown location, not the one in the mall that I'd like originally applied for. So they were like, oh, check the mall location because they usually hire more people. And I was like, okay, great. So I did that. Went to the hiring fair, it was fine. Did a culture hour there and it was completely different than the other one. Like, clearly there is no guidelines for what a freaking culture hour is. It was just completely different. It was like demoing products on someone that was higher up than me. So that was weird, but I ended up getting the job there. So that was for Christmas of 2016 season. When you work at Lush, you are put through pretty extensive training. So you have to basically memorize every single ingredient that Lush uses in their products, and then what products have those ingredients, and then what those ingredients do. So you have a lot of memorizing to do, and you're expected to know all of this. And then on top of that, you are expected to be extremely pushy in the store. So basically, at this store, the end of our contract starts to roll around. So I think there were about 12 seasonal people for Christmas at that time, and they're like, okay, we're gonna be hiring about 3 of you on, so, you know, apply for a full-time position if you want it, and we'll do interviews etc. So then the interviews start happening and they change their mind. They say, no, we're actually only going to be hiring one person. Wasn't hired there. And I was like, okay, whatever. So then, the store that I had first applied to, the downtown store, was going to be remodeling, moving to a new location, and basically hiring a ton of new people in like the summertime. So about 6 months after I left the first one. So I was like, great, pass on my information to that manager, Emma, and we'll see what happens. So I'm like waiting and waiting to hear back. We didn't have to go to a hiring fair for that. We would only have to go to a culture hour. And so I've stayed in touch with some people who I had worked at the previous store with, just wondering when culture hours were happening. They'd emailed me before saying, hey, we're gonna send out emails when there's culture hours so you can schedule a time. Just to let you know, like, you've come recommended by your other store. And I was like, okay, great. So time keeps going, I hear culture hours are happening, but I haven't gotten another email yet. So I email saying, hey, just wondering when culture hours are happening. I get an email back saying, yeah, we've already done all our culture hours, we've hired everyone for the summer season, thanks for trying. What? Okay, first of all, thanks for trying, you didn't even give me a chance. And then you told me you were going to email me about a culture hour because I had come highly recommended from the other store. Okay. So then, there's still more. Out of nowhere, out of the blue, I get an email from them saying, hey, so we're really desperate for people. Can you come in for a culture hour? And it's almost like I hate myself because I said yes. It's like, why did I put myself through that? So I said yes because I was like, oh great, like, they need more people. So I come in for a culture hour in the evening and I do a culture hour, which was similar to my very first one, by a girl named, let's call her Leslie. So Leslie does my culture hour. So then I go home, I wait to hear back, I hear back, they're like, yeah, great, you can start like on this day and your contract will go till this day. And I was like, okay, cool, like perfect. So I start and there is a completely different vibe in this store. So you are pushed and pushed and pushed to basically push and push and push on customers. And it was like so uncomfortable the entire time. You need to go hound that person over by the bath bombs who has already told me twice that they don't need any help. You know how awkward that is when you're told to do that and your manager or someone is watching you and watching that you go do that? It's so uncomfortable because as a customer, you don't want to be like bombarded by salespeople, but we were told to do that. So if someone came in for one thing, you have to convince them they want another. And you have to ask questions as soon as they walk in the door. Hi, how are you? How's your day going? And they would always tell you, like, make friends with them, be personal. But it's like, that is so fake. When you're coming into a store and you, especially if you know exactly what you want, like, I don't want to be bugged, you know? Like, it makes the process so unpleasant to be constantly harassed by salespeople. When you're told to hound people who are like regulars, it's just exhausting. And you're taken into the back and you're told to freaking like be more bubbly, and then you have to talk about it at the end and you're like quizzed all day, and it's just like, ugh. It was so, at first I really loved it. So disclaimer, at first I loved the job. It was very different from what I had done in tourism, so I was really into it. I worked with fairly cool people, but as I continued to work at the second location in the summer, the girl who had done my culture hour, Leslie, just was so incredibly condescending, and she would try and come off as like bubbly and nice and like making suggestions for what you could do better, but she would do it in a way that was so belittling and made you feel about this big. And just, I remember every interaction with her, I would just feel like shit after. I hated when she was floor leading, because I knew that I would have to be like so on, and it was just, it was bad. come home with like a headache from having to be so just like animated all day, and I literally just like turned into someone that I hated. Like as a customer, I hated the person that like I was. Like I hate salespeople that are like that, but I had to be that, or I would get like constantly told I was not enough. And so it was just, like I've said, it was exhausting. So kind of wrapping this up, basically at the end of that, I had applied to stay on full time. Again, they said they were gonna keep most of us seasonal people, which most of us were seasonal in the summer. They said they were gonna keep most of the seasonal people, which I think there were like 16 of us or so. They kept 3. They're like, yeah, just apply again in September for the, or like October for the Christmas season. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're gonna make me go through that whole thing again, and you're gonna fire all of these people and then have to go through the whole rehire process again in a month? Like, that is so inconvenient. Not to mention, so the manager at the downtown store who had done my original culture hour, I think we called her Emma, was the manager at the store, the downtown store that I'd worked at in the summer. And it was like, I literally don't even think she remembered giving me a culture hour, telling me I got the job, and then having someone else call me a couple days later saying I didn't. Like, so unprofessional. There was another manager there, didn't even introduce herself to me. I had no idea who she was for the longest time, because like, I didn't work with her a lot, but she would just be there, and like, I didn't even know who she was. It's just like, the communication was just bad. They kept telling us, yeah, you'll be hired. No, you won't be hired. We're gonna do this. No, we're gonna do that. Let's screw our employees around as much as we can. That's literally how I felt by the end of it. Like, clearly I'm still salty about it. Have not gotten over it. Like, I don't know, just under a year later. Like, ugh. So, if you are thinking of getting a job at Lush, let's get real close. Listen, if you're thinking of getting a job at Lush, heed my warning. You need to be the most on person you have ever been in your life. You need to be ready to harass people 24/7 that come into the store. And you do get a 50% discount, which was real nice. Also, I should say that this is probably not the case in every store. So every store is different. Every store has different management. Every store has different coworkers. Whatever. But overall, Lush has a very specific way of doing retail. If you're not someone who likes to be pushy or pushed on as a customer, then I do not think Lush is the place for you. I was mostly in it for the 50% off discount. From about August to August, so probably a full year, I had not had a single bath without a bathtub or a bubble bar in it, and I have baths every day. So I was having very expensive bougie baths for a year. That's cool. That's a positive. It's a hellhole. Do not work there. It sucks. So that has been Storytime with Kate. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked spilling the tea with me. If you did, like the video and comment down below if you've worked at Lush or in any retail position have had a similar experience or a really different experience. I'd love to hear. Remember to subscribe, and I'll be back real soon with some more Disney videos, so stay tuned for that. Bye.